Let's get back to the breaking news coverage of that news conference at Milwaukee Police Headquarters. We're told the police chief and the mayor are walking out now to talk about the arrests that have been made in the case of the stolen Stradivarius violin. Let's listen in as this news conference begins.
Good afternoon. I'm Mayor Tom Barrett, and I am joined this afternoon by Milwaukee Police Chief Edward Flynn, FBI Acting Special Agent in Charge G.B. Jones, Captain Jeff Point, and several members of the Milwaukee Police Department, including investigators who have worked on this violin case. I want to praise the Milwaukee Police Department as well as the FBI for working so closely together. It's been a model of cooperation. And while this remains an ongoing investigation, there have been significant developments that we felt it was imperative that we allow the community to share with us. So I'm going to turn it over to Chief Flynn, and again, I want to compliment him and his staff for doing a very, very thorough job in this very important case. Chief Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've called this event to notify everyone that the Milwaukee Police Department will be seeking charges against 3 individuals for the January 27th robbery from the concertmeister of the Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra of his priceless Stradivarius violin. The suspects are a 36-year-old man, a 41-year-old man, and a 32-year-old woman, all from the city of Milwaukee. They were arrested February 3rd, and all 3 remain in our custody. Now, the Milwaukee Police Department will continue to work closely with our colleagues in the Federal Bureau of Investigation, as well as the District Attorney's Office. We emphasize that at this time, although we've made arrests, we have not yet recovered the violin. Now, I'm extremely proud of the officers and detectives of the Milwaukee Police Department. This case came together rapidly through sources in the city of Milwaukee, and the leads were followed up by our detectives. We've had invaluable help from the FBI, from their art unit, as obviously they've got a broad perspective, and as we continue to search for this violin, I suspect that their assistance will continue to be invaluable. But the important thing to stress is that within a week of this case, our detectives made an arrest, which we believe will successfully result in these individuals being charged and convicted. Now, as I say, we do not have the violin. As is known, there is a substantial reward out for that violin, and we urge the community to do what it can to develop information and to help us identify and locate and recover this priceless instrument. I'm going to give you the phone numbers again that we've asked for people to avail themselves in the past. The Milwaukee Police Department number is 414-935-7360. The Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra's phone number is 414-226-7838. We've had valuable tips before on these lines. We are hopeful that we will get some valuable tips that will help us locate this priceless object of art. I'll take some questions, but I'm sure you can understand, given the nature of this investigation, my answers will not be as complete as they might otherwise be.
Chief, do you have a reason to believe the violin is still in the city of Milwaukee?
Well, we don't want to speculate where it is. I think there's a good chance that it is. We haven't certainly received any information otherwise, and I think that's a reasonable supposition that it's still in our jurisdiction.
Was the crime caught on tape or anything? I guess what led you to these suspects?
The suspects, we were led to these suspects for a variety of ways. Without going into too much detail, we had both information that pointed to some of these suspects. We also developed physical evidence that specifically linked one of them to this crime. So between the physical evidence we have that we believe was very strong and the information we received, we've been able to narrow these suspects down to this particular crime.
So do you think they acted alone, or were they acting on behalf of someone else?
At this point, we don't have any indication that they were working for anyone but themselves.
Yes, there'll be an investigation. Any loss behind potential motive? Are we talking monetary, perhaps political, religious? Is there any thought about the motive?
Well, one of the things about the criminal justice process, we don't have to prove motive. We have to, prove intent. We have to prove the overt act, and we are very clear that we've got enough proof to demonstrate those two issues.
Did Mr. Allman pick them out in the lineup?
We're not going to comment on the results of that lineup at this point in time, as that's still going to be part of the criminal justice charging process.
Were you able to inform Mr. Allman of this, and did he pass anything along? I know he's not saying much.
Yeah, well, he's aware. We've made the arrests. We've notified people at the Symphony. I believe they've issued a statement.
Any history with these suspects of stealing art before or taking art and trying to resell it?
One of our suspects is not unknown to us in that regard.
Any ties to any international organizations still at this point you're looking into?
Far too soon to tell, but as of now, our information indicates that these individuals were acting in concert, but only for themselves.
Well, if you found the suspects, how do you go about now finding the violin?
Well, that's our challenge, isn't it? We are obviously going to continue our interviews of the suspects. Clearly, we want to indicate that it's perhaps in their best interests to recognize that this is not something that can easily be disposed of at some future date. It'll never be valuable for a thief. It's only valuable for a collector, and it's only valuable to a collector if it can be played, and it can't be played if it's known to be stolen. So, one thing is very clear that we've learned from our friends at the FBI as well as from the art world. This thing is extremely valuable to a very small number of people who's having it requires it to be in the public eye. So there's not a market for it. It's not a good trophy. It's not going to gain value for them. And so the challenge is, can we get somebody who was smart enough to figure out this crime to be smart enough to give up where it is?
Would you describe them as cooperating?
I would describe them right now as engaged in the process.
Do the other two suspects have criminal past? You mentioned one.
Well, I'm not going to, go into a dissection of everybody right now, but suffice it to say that, our main person of interest is one who is not unknown to us.
Sorry. Did the reward help at all in arresting the suspect?
Well, time will tell. I think it may have been an inducement for some of the tips we got, and if that's so, then I want to remind everybody the reward's still out there. So tips that lead us to this violin are obviously going to be tips that may be worth money to those who possess them.
Are any of them tied to the music business?
I only insofar as they're a target of opportunity here.
Only as what?
Only insofar as what they wanted to steal.
Any indication of the quality of the violin, like that they would take pains to make sure that it would still remain in good condition?
Can't say. All I do know is that they did target this instrument.
Do they have any strong ties to local businesses here in the community or any sort of outreach activist groups here?
Well, as I say, that information will be made available at an appropriate time after charges are formally brought, at which point in time, obviously, all of our evidence will be brought forward and a case will be made. At this time, it's not useful to go into any more detail than we have so far.
This was a high-profile case. You mentioned a number for people to call. Were you getting a lot of calls?
We did get some calls, and some of them were helpful. So obviously, as I say, this reward, some of it may be well accounted for, given the fact that some of this information was verifiable. And I just want to again stress to the broader community that there's still reward money out there, and this violin is worth money to the average person for one reason only, and that if it's returned safely, then it's worth money to people.
Whatever happened to the getaway van?
I'm sorry?
Whatever happened to the van?
We're still looking for it. Thanks for reminding me of that. If you would be so kind as to once again put the photographs out on it tonight, we're still seeking that van.
Can you say if the violin is still protected in its case? What do you know anything about this?
Well, we recovered the case, so we don't know what steps have been taken to safeguard the violin. We're hopeful that some steps have been taken, but we don't know. And again, the more information we can get, the quicker we can recover the van, and the quicker we can restore it to its rightful owners.
Any indication that Mr. Allman knew the actors?
There's no indication at all, no.
Can you say where you recovered the case?
We recovered it, I guess, within hours of the theft. So it was discarded along the route that the van took.
Is the FBI able to bring in any information about how things go beyond the borders here and what the FBI is doing in in terms of...
I'm not sure if the,
nationwide
you want to say
search?
anything,
I
GB?
can certainly comment
Okay.
on that. As you know, the FBI has both domestic and international agents, and we will engage all of those resources in pursuit of this. So yes, we are pursuing leads that are outside the state of Wisconsin right now, as well as international leads if appropriate. At this point, we're confident the subjects in custody are the subjects responsible for this.
But do you have any intel that it has moved out of Milwaukee, the violin?
Beyond what the chief has already addressed, we won't speculate as to where we believe it may be.
Chief, what kind of charges are you recommending?
Well, we're recommending several charges to the DA. Obviously, it's their call, so I don't want to be lobbying the DA at a news conference, but certainly one of them will be robbery. Okay? All right, thank you very much.
Okay, a mildly proud afternoon here for the Milwaukee Police Department as they just announced that 2 days ago, on Monday the 3rd of February, 3 people were taken into custody for the theft of that Lipinski Stradivarius violin, a priceless work of art. However, the chief can't boast too much because that violin is still missing. As you said, those 3 suspects were arrested. However, physical evidence from one of those suspects connecting them to the crime, helping police to be able to make this arrest in just a week. We'll be right back after the break.